Bongdaga National Park in Mauritania. 1.2 million hectares of shallow, grassy water. Plankton thrive here. Low tide reveals the abundance of food for birds. Over the winter, curlew sandpipers share this spot with over 40 other waterbird species, more than 1.5 million birds, spending their days feeding and resting until most of them depart in the spring for their breeding grounds. The national park and UNESCO World Heritage Site is a haven for people and wildlife. But like so many of the world's wetland ecosystems, even those protected by treaty, the park faces numerous threats, including unregulated human activity and rising sea levels from climate change. Managing these threats requires collaboration between local and international partners to monitor and protect these unique places. Migratory waterbirds have more than one home. Species like the curlew sandpiper rely on a network of critical sites that spans political borders. Each year, they travel from where they nest and raise their young to their wintering grounds, on journeys that can last weeks and span thousands of kilometers. Between these sites, most of them depend on staging sites, places where birds find predictable, abundant food and the opportunity to rest, to maintain the energy that powers their flights over land and sea. These staging sites are similar to service stations for people when driving on long trips. They are the specific locations waterbirds have evolved to rely on to complete their yearly life cycle. Birds cannot survive without their intact network of critical breeding, staging, and wintering sites. Because of threats to their sites, curlew sandpipers, some of which travel 15,000 kilometers twice a year, have lost 50% of their population in the last 40 years. The migratory routes birds use to move between critical sites form the flyways of the world. One of these is the African-Eurasian Flyway, a massive collection of networks stretching from the Scandinavian, European and Russian Arctic to temperate and tropical regions of southern Africa. Within this flyway, over 250 bird species dependent on wetlands for at least part of their annual cycle, like the curlew sandpiper, the ruff, the Damara tern and the black-tailed godwit, pass through 119 countries in Africa, the Middle East, Europe, Central Asia, Greenland and the Canadian Arctic archipelago. In 1995, the Agreement on the Conservation of African-Eurasian Migratory Waterbirds, or AWA, was created to protect these species and the habitats that are crucial for their survival. Sites that ensure healthy environments for birds and people. When these sites are in danger, species begin to decline. Like the curlew sandpiper, many waterbirds are showing population decreases in parts of Africa, Central Asia and Europe. One such species in decline, the lesser white-fronted goose, departs in late August from its tundra breeding grounds in the Russian Arctic or northern Scandinavia, traveling up to 7,000 kilometers along multiple routes crossing 20 countries. Russia, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan host significant staging sites. The geese use a range of habitats, including steppe grasslands and natural floodplains. Their wintering grounds are located in Greece and spread throughout the Middle East along the Black Sea, Caspian Sea and Persian Gulf. Although the species is legally protected, between 1998 and 2008, the population of this rarest goose within the flyway decreased by over 30% due to the loss of natural floodplain habitats and illegal killing across their migratory routes. Climate change is also altering their Arctic breeding grounds. Another species, the Sociable Lapwing, has a population of less than 16,000 today. These birds, named for their large congregations formed during migration, breed in loose colonies. They nest in steppe habitat where the grass is kept short by grazing animals. Prior to 1960, the lapwing's range included parts of southwestern Russia and much of Sudan. Today, this critically endangered species faces threats across its life cycle and has disappeared from many places because of illegal hunting at many sites and habitat loss from changed agricultural practices. The flocks that once formed during migration are now greatly reduced. And the lesser flamingo can be found in almost every sub-Saharan African country and along the Arabian Peninsula during the non-breeding season. But 75% of the global population and nearly the entire African population breeds in Lake Natron in Tanzania. Disturbances to their specialized habitat, such as changes in water quality or water levels, could have potentially devastating consequences for the entire species. Information from across the flyway for birds like the curlew sandpiper, the lesser white-fronted goose, the sociable lapwing, and the lesser flamingo exists because of international cooperation. This information is translated into action at the local level, where community members work together with people from conservation and science to protect and sustainably manage individual sites. In the African-Eurasian Flyway, AOA joins these local and regional partnerships with national governments and other stakeholders under an international, legally binding framework. The critical sites in the flyway have been identified, information collected and made widely available, like the data for these places, means that countries can detect and manage issues at specific sites in a species' life cycle. With this coordination, birds and their environments have the best chance of being protected across the flyway. Southeast England, October. More than 60,000 red knots spend the winter at a site known as the Wash, after finishing their breeding seasons in Canada and Greenland. The juveniles and adults feed alongside Eurasian oystercatchers in the shallow waters. Prior to their arrival in England, a number of these birds stopped in the Wadden Sea World Heritage Site off the coast of the Netherlands, Germany and Denmark. There, they joined other red knots, some of which had arrived from the Russian Arctic. The sea, the largest system of tidal flats in the world, is a critical site for at least 40 different species of waterbirds. Red knots chase the tide. The mud here is filled with small shellfish that the birds consume. Many red knots will winter here. Those from the Russian Arctic will fatten up to prepare for the journey to the Bong Daga in Mauritania and the Bijagos archipelago off the coast of Guinea-Bissau. The roughly 88 islands and islets of this UNESCO Biosphere Reserve are home to a mix of habitats, including forests, savannas, mangroves, and intertidal zones. Red knots join 94 other species of waterbirds at a place that has been protected by the local community and conservation organizations. Together, they are ensuring the land remains as productive for wildlife and humans as it has for thousands of years. Waterbirds, including red knots, have evolved over millions of years to navigate the hemispheres and to traverse them in unimaginable feats of endurance. They are not equipped to cope with rapid change, but they will remain safe in places like the Bijagos archipelago, so long as these sites remain actively protected by people. The recent decline of waterbirds means that our shared ecosystems are struggling. And because our water, our air, and our birds are not bound by borders, International cooperation, a flyway-wide approach is needed to create conservation actions that will conserve our wetlands and our birds. Providing healthy sites for birds means preserving clean food, clean air and fresh water for the communities that live nearby. Countries and cultures along the African-Eurasian Flyway share a common responsibility to care for the sites that we, and migrating birds, need to thrive. Please join ongoing efforts to ensure the continued protection of our waterbirds and the stepping stones we all call home.